Kia ora mai tātou, tēnā tātou katoa. Members, prior to the dinner break, we were debating Part 3 of the Environment Canterbury Transitional Arrangements Bill. And the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove was speaking. He still has the call, and he has 1 minute and 24 seconds remaining if he wishes to avail himself of the privilege. And if not, we'll take another call. Chris Farfoy.
Thank you for your generosity once again, Mr Chairman. I believe we're on Part 3 and Schedule 3 of the bill. And
it's all about water.
Pardon?
It's all about water, isn't it?
Right, yes it is.
We're going to stick to that, aren't we?
That's correct, Mr Chair. You are right. I'd like to pay particular attention to Schedule 3, if I am able to, Mr Chair. And it is, I believe, a document which was authored in late 2009 around the vision and principles of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy. And I wanted to focus first on the vision statement that it has. And it states that the vision for the strategy is to enable present and future generations to gain the greatest social, economic, recreational and cultural benefits from our water resources within an environmentally sustainable framework. I think as a vision statement goes, Mr Chair, I don't think anyone in this House would have too much of a problem with that as a vision statement. The problem we have though, Mr Chair, is, as in within other parts of this bill, parts 1, 2 and 3, is the lack of public ability to be able to democratically choose a body to try and achieve that vision statement. I think the vision statement as it stands is a very worthy one, but I think the public, and especially the people of Canterbury, deserve the right to be able to elect an ECAN board to try and achieve the vision that Schedule 3 sets out. I don't think it's overly complicated. I think that potentially people who were elected to an Environment Canterbury board could achieve that vision statement. But my question to the Minister and the Chair, and I realise the Honourable Dr Nick Smith is not in the chair at the moment, is to why doesn't he believe that a fully elected Environment Canterbury board cannot achieve that vision statement? And the only guide that I have is some of the previous statements that Dr Smith has made in this part of this debate, is that he already has a completely different vision statement other than what is set out in Schedule 3, because he wants to try and achieve that in a particular way that a democratically elected board, he believes, in his opinion, wouldn't be able to achieve. So my question to the Minister and the Chair is, why has the government chosen to not take a fully democratic role or process to ensure that there is a fully elected board of Environment Canterbury to achieve that vision statement? The Schedule 3 goes on then to outline some of the regional approaches that the Environment Canterbury board, whether it be fully elected or a mixed model as is within this piece of legislation, has to go about its business. And I think there are 2 points that I want to point out that are on page 26, one of them being a consistent regulatory approach to water as applied throughout the Canterbury region, recognising these principles. And one of the concerns that we've had is that because there is going to be a different regime for Christchurch, you may have different rules for Christchurch or Canterbury and different regimes for other parts of New Zealand. And that is clearly pointed out in Schedule 3, Mr Chair. And then the other quirky one that is in number 2 under Schedule 3 is a slight contradiction in the way that it wants to approach water management in Canterbury, but also elect a board that is going to manage the process of managing water in Canterbury. And that is dot point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Mr Chair, where it says a cautious approach is to be taken when information is uncertain, unreliable or inadequate. So we've got to be cautious when there's a very murky picture with the water, but we're not so cautious, Mr Chair, when it comes to the democratic process of electing the people who are tasked with carrying out this vision statement. We've pointed out a number of times, Mr Chair, in Part 1 debate and Part 2 debate, and some of my colleagues have done a very good job of pointing out in this part of the debate that we have serious concerns around the lack of full democratic ability of the people of Canterbury to elect the board. We do have a mixed model here that will elect the board around the water management systems. Mr Chair?
Just order. I just want to make a point to the member and maybe to others who are wishing to follow on after him, and I will give him the call when I finish making this point. The fact is that it does get a bit repetitive when the same point is made over and over and over again around the democratic process, which everybody has heard is made under various parts all the way through. But just because it's made, the same point is made under each different part doesn't mean that it isn't repetitive. So what I suggest the member and members wishing to take a call do is to dig into the meat of these provisions and to debate them rather than go back and make the same point over and over and over again, because that is repetition, and as members will well know, being students of standing orders, whether or not it is repetition is the province of the guy sitting in this seat. Chris Farfoy.
Chair, I thank you for your guidance in that matter, Mr Chair, and just to put the Chair at ease, I was just coming to the end of that particular point when I wanted to raise the other issue, which is in Part 3, around the judicial process either contained or not contained within this part. The Minister and the Chair noted, and without naming names, that instead of allowing there to be an appeal process, that he was considering, and almost laid out, Mr Chair, that he was almost certainly going to do this, appoint a former Environment Court judge to the Canterbury Board to, I guess, do away with the need for an appeal process, because the learned judge would be on the board, and so he would be able to use his skills to able to adjudicate in an instance where there might be some contest. In that respect, Mr Chair, and I'm not going to labour this point because it has been made and repetition is not something that you want to see in this debate, we have concern around that. Because the judicial process set up in many other areas are set up to make sure that there is an avenue. And to see that judicial process usurped or worked around by a minister because we've got someone with the skills on the board is not a practice we want to see made a constant practice. We do have concerns around that. It's not, in our eyes, the proper process. He may have the skills indeed to make the call, but in terms of setting up the process so that the people of Canterbury can have absolute confidence that if they do have issues and they do need to work through these water management issues and there is an appeal, then having someone on the board itself who just happens to have those skills, who has had experience on the Environment Court, in our eyes isn't good enough. It needs to be a robust process, it needs to be a transparent process, and in our eyes, Mr Chair, that is not robust and that is not transparent, just co-opting someone with those skills onto the board, and maybe the Minister and the Chair might like to answer some of those questions.